I've never gotten New Jersey wrong, ever. I've been doing it for years and years.
You and I have talked about is the same phenomenon of the buyer's remorse from the first year of the Trump administration, in which a lot of perception from a lot of voters, Trump has not delivered on his promise to give stability, especially in the economy. In fact, we just have what looks like more chaos.
I think the upshot of today is a referendum on Donald Trump. It's Tuesday, and it's election day, and here's a special edition of Real Polling in Real Time with Zogby. Once again, I'm John Zogby here with my son, Sherrill. And real polling in real time, we have some real polling, don't we, in New Jersey? And we're going to talk about it, but we're also going to talk about Election Day and what we think we can expect. So why don't I start things off? All right. So first of all, we did a poll in New Jersey. And what's unique about our poll is, number one, I've never gotten New Jersey wrong, ever. I've been doing it for years and years. In fact, sometimes we've been all alone out there and been the only ones to get it right. And so our polling is a little different also because everybody else, all the other pollsters, released their polls that were completed by the 29th or 30th. We started on the 31st and took it right up until yesterday afternoon. So we kept the lights on longer than anybody else to capture last minute trends. And so there are a couple of polls showing that race between Mikie Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli as tightening up, but not us. We actually have a widening lead. So why don't you just walk us through that a little bit, and then we'll comment on it.
Yeah,
what do you
sure. So I guess what I'll start with is going into it. As you mentioned, there was Atlas Intel. They had Sherrill ahead by one, which is what some people call virtually a dead heat. And then there was Emerson a day or two before that also showed Sherrill ahead by two. So, if you look at those two polls, which were the most recent, showing a very tight race. But then there was Fox News, interestingly, that had Sherrill ahead by 7. Now, when Fox News came out the same night, Hannity had Ciattarelli come on and was really pumping it up. All these polls are showing that it's tightening up. And so a lot of people that I'm reading about and talking to had this expectation that Ciattarelli was building on his base from 2021. Now, remember, in 2021, he only lost by 3. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that we can talk about why that was. I think essentially one of those things not only included some buyer's remorse from the Biden administration. New Jersey is uniquely positioned in the election cycle 1 year after a new administration. And so buyer's remorse can play into that. But I also think COVID lockdowns and COVID mandates had really soured people, and hence why one of the factors why Ciattarelli did so well. And so a lot of people expected he was going to build on his base. And actually, that did not happen. So what happened there, as you and I have talked about, is the same phenomenon of the buyer's remorse from the first year of the Trump administration, in which a lot of perception from a lot of voters, Trump has not delivered on his promise to give stability, especially in the economy. In fact, and the promise to end the forever wars. In fact, we just have what looks like more chaos. Now, that's kind of the broader sense of what's going into this. When we look at the poll, first of all, we should talk about the horse race. We have Sherrill with 55% and Ciattarelli with 43, a 12-point lead. Now, that's an outlier. And as you mentioned, we entered later and stayed in longer, and we think that we caught the trend line, a big break for Sherrill. But what is pushing that is really just a few dynamics. the gender gap is fascinating. If you look at Sherrill's command of the women vote, she leads by 27 percentage points. Now, you might expect Ciattarelli to really drive the male voters, but he's only leading men by 3 percentage points. So that kind of gives us a window into things. Then I would take it to another demographic, married voters versus non-married voters. Non-married voters being single voters and divorced voters. And if you look at Sherrill's lead among non-married voters, she's leading by 21 points. And Ciattarelli only has the married vote by 3 percentage points. And then one other layer to this are the independent voters, who Sherrill, in our poll, is leading the independent vote by 12 percentage points. So you put those three together and you have Sherrill, who has massively excited the liberal vote, women, obviously Democrats, non-married voters, and independent voters. Ciattarelli, he has mobilized men, rural voters and conservative voters, but not to the extent that you would need for a Republican, albeit in what's by and large still considered, fairly a blue state. That's just not going to put him over the edge. And so that's what we're showing in our poll.
I would only add to that the numbers among Hispanics and blacks, who are substantial size voting blocks in the state of New Jersey, are not where they've traditionally been favorable to Democrats, but they're a whole lot more favorable to the Democrat in the race than what Kamala Harris produced in 2024. So I think we're looking at Hispanics at about 60% support for Mikie Sherrill, a lot closer to where Hispanics have traditionally been. And among blacks, 82% is the number that I recall seeing supporting Mikie Sherrill. And so in the final analysis, we may be dead wrong. I don't think we are. I think the upshot of today is a referendum on Donald Trump. And I think we're going to be looking at reporting later tonight, early tomorrow, that a good day for the Democrats. Trump's job approval rating in both Virginia and in ours in New Jersey is very low. And not only overall, but on most issues. And I think also that what we're seeing is that we may very well have a sweep. It looks like Spanberger, the Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, is pulling away with double-digit lead in Virginia. It does look, anything can happen, of course, last minute, but it looks like a Mamdani victory in New York City, or at least a whole lot more competitive than one would ever thought a Democratic socialist could do in New York City. And then anything I have seen, it's very hard to poll referenda in California, but anything I have seen has Prop 50, which would allow for redistricting in California before it's due, is leading by 20 percentage points over the no vote. And so, we'll be back to analyze what actually did happen, but I feel comfortable in suggesting that we're probably going to have a big Democratic night tonight.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. I'm tempted to go into some of the issues, but we can save that for the next time around. I think we've covered the basic trend line.
Okay, so we'll talk very soon. Take care.
Yeah.